Long before it became a tropical symbol of American tourism, Hawaii was something else entirely, an independent island nation, a kingdom with its own rulers, its own culture, and its own place in the world. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles from any continent, Hawaii stood as a strategic crossroads. Ships passed through, empires took notice. But for decades, the islands remained sovereign, ruled by monarchs who navigated diplomacy with global powers while preserving their identity. That balance would not last. In this video, we look at how Hawaii transformed from an independent island kingdom into part of the United States. First contact. Everything began to change in 1778, when British explorer James Cook arrived on the islands. His arrival opened Hawaii to the outside world. Trade, disease, missionaries, and foreign influence followed. For the first time, Hawaii was pulled into a global network it had never asked to join. Ships began arriving more frequently, bringing goods, weapons, and new ideas, but also illnesses that the native population had never encountered before. Entire communities were affected as disease spread rapidly through the islands. Westerners didn't just visit, they stayed. Missionaries established churches and schools, gradually reshaping local beliefs and traditions. Christianity began to replace long-standing spiritual practices. At the same time, merchants saw opportunity, setting up trading posts and building early businesses that tied Hawaii's economy to foreign markets. Foreign advisors also found their way into positions of influence within the royal court, offering guidance that often aligned more with Western interests than Hawaiian priorities. What began as contact slowly turned into dependence. Hawaii was no longer isolated, it was becoming entangled. A kingdom under pressure. By the early 1800s, Hawaii had unified under one ruler, Kamehameha I. Through a series of strategic battles and alliances, he established the Kingdom of Hawaii and brought the islands under centralized control. Kamehameha understood the growing presence of foreign powers. Rather than resist outright, he chose a path of careful diplomacy, maintaining trade relationships while working to preserve Hawaii's independence. For a time, it worked. The kingdom remained sovereign, balancing between competing global interests. But foreign powers, especially the United States and Britain, were watching closely. As decades passed, American missionaries and businessmen became more deeply rooted in Hawaiian society. What started as religious and cultural influence gradually expanded into economic control. Large plantations began to dominate the landscape, particularly for sugar production. Sugar quickly became the backbone of Hawaii's economy, and much of it was controlled by foreign-owned enterprises. Land ownership began to shift. Wealth concentrated in the hands of a small group of outsiders and their descendants. Native Hawaiians found themselves increasingly pushed to the margins of their own economy. And with economic control came political ambition. The power shift. By the late 19th century, the balance of power in Hawaii had quietly shifted. American and European businessmen, many of them descendants of missionaries, now controlled vast sugar plantations. Their wealth gave them influence. Their influence gave them leverage. At the center of this transformation was one key factor: access to the American market. Hawaiian sugar entered the United States duty-free under trade agreements. But this advantage came with conditions. The islands were becoming economically dependent on the U.S. Then came the turning point. In 1887, a group of armed businessmen and militia forced King Kalakaua to sign a new constitution. It stripped the monarchy of much of its power. It gave voting rights to foreign residents, and it effectively transferred control of the government into the hands of wealthy elites. It became known as the Bayonet Constitution because it was signed under threat. Hawaii was still a kingdom, but it was no longer fully in control of its own destiny. The overthrow. When King Kalakaua died, his sister, Liliuokalani, took the throne. She saw what had happened to her kingdom, and she tried to take it back. Queen Liliuokalani proposed a new constitution, one that would restore power to the monarchy and return authority to native Hawaiians. For the American businessmen and plantation owners, this was a direct threat, so they acted. In 1893, a group known as the Committee of Safety, backed by U.S. residents and supported by American military forces, moved against the Queen. U.S. Marines landed in Honolulu, not to fight, but to ensure the outcome. The monarchy was overthrown. Queen Liliuokalani, facing the possibility of violence against her people, chose to surrender, not because she accepted defeat, but because she hoped the United States would reverse what had been done. It didn't. Annexation. After the overthrow, a provisional government was established, led largely by American businessmen and political interests who now held power in the islands. Their objective was clear from the beginning: annexation by the United States. They believed Hawaii's future and their own economic security depended on becoming part of America. Petitions were sent, lobbying efforts intensified, a formal request for annexation was placed before the U.S. government. At first, it wasn't guaranteed. Even U.S. President Grover Cleveland opposed the overthrow and called it unjust. He argued that the removal of the Hawaiian monarchy had been carried out improperly with the involvement of American forces and attempted to restore Queen Liliuokalani to the throne. But the political will to reverse the situation faded. A new administration took over, and with it, a different vision of America's role in the world. Global politics were shifting. The United States was no longer looking inward, it was expanding outward, seeking influence across the Pacific and beyond. And Hawaii, sitting between North America and Asia, was too valuable to ignore. Its location made it a strategic military outpost, a refueling station, a gateway to emerging markets in Asia. Control of Hawaii meant control of a critical point in the Pacific. Then came war. During the Spanish-American War, the urgency to secure Hawaii intensified. Military leaders saw the islands as essential to supporting operations across the ocean. This time, there was little resistance. The United States officially annexed Hawaii. Strategic necessity had overridden ethical concerns. What had once been debated as controversial was now framed as essential. Hawaii was no longer a kingdom. It was now American territory. From territory to state. For decades, Hawaii remained a U.S. territory. Its people lived under American governance, followed American laws, and contributed to the American economy, but without full political representation. Decisions about Hawaii's future were often made thousands of miles away in Washington. Yet the islands continued to grow in importance. As global tensions rose in the early 20th century, Hawaii became a central hub for U.S. military presence in the Pacific. Naval bases expanded, troops were stationed. The islands were no longer just economically valuable, they were strategically critical. That importance became undeniable in 1941. The attack on Pearl Harbor transformed Hawaii overnight. What had been a distant territory was suddenly at the center of a global war. In the years that followed, Hawaii's identity within the United States began to shift. Its role, its population, and its connection to the mainland all evolved. After World War II, the push for full statehood gained momentum. Many argued that if Hawaii was to remain part of the United States, its people deserved equal representation and full rights. The debate continued for years, balancing political, cultural, and strategic considerations. Finally, in 1959, Hawaii officially became the 50th state of the United States. But the path to that moment was far from simple. and for many, far from fair. What was lost? What remains? Today, Hawaii is known for its beaches, its landscapes, and its place within the United States. But beneath that image lies a deeper story. A story of a sovereign kingdom, of foreign influence, of power, pressure, and takeover. For some, Hawaii's statehood represents progress and integration. For others, it represents loss. Loss of independence, loss of control, loss of a nation that once stood alone in the Pacific. And even now, the question lingers: was Hawaii truly given a choice?
If you enjoyed this journey through history, there's more waiting for you. Please like the video, and also do not forget to subscribe to the channel.